Peoria Mayor Kathy Carlat. Thanks for joining me for another edition of Peoria Pulse. Peoria's Public Works Utilities Department oversees a wide range of services that provide direct value to residents every single day. This includes water delivery, solid waste management, also known as trash management, traffic systems, street maintenance, and much more. Today, I'm happy to be joined by Peoria's Public Works Utilities Department Director, Stuart Kent, who will give us a look inside the world of public works. Stuart, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, so we are in kind of a unique environment here. Please tell me about this important room.
We are at the Greenway Water Treatment Plant, and today the screens behind us allow us to actually remotely operate all of City of Peoria's water treatment facilities and wastewater treatment facilities. It's the screens are either showing the chemical distribution or what's happening at various well sites around the city, or in the case what's even happening at another water treatment facility. So it allows us to operate all the facilities 24/7 from one location.
Wow, so this ties into all of the city's infrastructure.
Water operations, yes.
So tell me about that infrastructure. Are there a lot of different facilities?
Absolutely. The city has 3 water reclamation facilities. That's where we take the water that's gone down the drain, treat it, and either reuse it as a part of an effluent program or put it back in the ground to recharge it for future water credit so it can be used again. The city also has 2 water production facilities. Greenway is one, and then the Pyramid Peak facility is the other. And we use those facilities to treat the water that then is distributed to our residents.
So you mentioned effluent water. Can you explain what that is?
Sure. Effluent water is water that's treated to a standard that's not drinkable, but can be then put back in the ground, potentially be used for recharge credits. In other words, you put it in the ground, and then when you need to pull it out later, you can do so through wells. It can also be used for irrigation. It can be used for golf course watering. It can be used for a variety of non-consumable uses. And that's an effort we're going to continue to use as a city to better use the water resource that we have. As we like to say, Peoria always has enough water to use, but never so much to waste.
I absolutely love that slogan. So tell me about water reuse. We have the infrastructure in place to reuse water in certain areas of our city already, right?
Yes, we do. We have water reuse capability at the Jomax plant and at the Beardsley plant and at the Butler plant. And so as an example, Pioneer Park, one of our most heavily used parks in the city, is watered completely with effluent water. The lakes are effluent water, and some neighboring neighborhoods around it actually have effluent water for their common area maintenance. So it's a function of creating a separate set of pipes to get to those locations. But similarly, Vistancia Golf Course gets reused water from Jomax plant.
Okay, all right, and so that's the purple pipe system,
Yes,
right?
the purple pipe system, yes.
And so there's a different cost for potable water, water you can drink, and non-potable water, which is the water you just described, right?
Exactly, because you're not having to treat it to the same standard. So it's a lower cost, and we can then produce it while still making sure that we're protecting all of our water resources.
Right, and so that's a benefit for developers when they move in and they want to grow in our city and build new homes. If they want to put in that infrastructure, then they will in turn receive a lower water rate, right?
Exactly, and then those HOAs that those residents live in will then be able to benefit from that long term as well.
Yes, I would love to see our purple pipe system expand throughout our entire city. I think that is such a great amenity that we have.
It is, and it's a great opportunity for us, and we can continue to expand it as well.
Yeah. One of the most wonderful things about Peoria.
Yes.
Okay, so when we're talking about water and we're talking about all of our utilities, tell me about enterprise funds.
Sure. So our water and wastewater operations, actually as well as our solid waste operations, operate under an enterprise fund. So what that means is that residents, when you're paying your water bill, those dollars are going directly to cover the cost of that service. It's not going to cover parks, it's not going to cover police officers or anything else. And similarly, taxes you pay for, say, sales tax, when you buy groceries or buy foods and services in the city of Peoria, those don't go to the enterprise funds. The enterprise funds are sort of self-sustaining that operate really like a business. And so our solid waste operations for residential and commercial solid waste, as well as our water and wastewater operations, all operate under an enterprise system.
Okay, so that when our citizens pay their water bill or pay their bill for refuse collection, that all goes into the enterprise funds, and those funds are used to pay for everything that it takes to maintain and run these services.
Exactly, and they're cost accounted completely separately, and again, they're really operated as business. So every year we're evaluating relative to anything we need to do with rates or anything else. What is our fund balance? What are our obligations? What is our debt service? All those things, and it's all based on that revenue that the resident and the business owner pays on that water bill, and that revenue only.
That is nice, clear, easy bookkeeping and very transparent, so all of our citizens can look at it at any time they want, right? They can go on the website?
Absolutely.
That's wonderful. Well, so tell me about some of your other services.
Sure. The Public Works Utilities Department is very large. It's about 278 employees. It's an operating budget of almost $80 million, so it's a very big operation. It includes, like we've talked about, water and wastewater, solid waste. We maintain approximately 800 plus vehicles and pieces of equipment in our fleet. We maintain all the city buildings and all of the structures. So the restrooms and all the other things at the parks, those are all maintained by the facility staff. In addition, we have all our street maintenance. So it's over 630 miles of streets, 15,000 street lights. It's all that infrastructure. I like to call it in a lot of ways the undiscovered city. Much of it is public and is seen. Much of it's below ground and isn't seen. And for most residents, they go through their day, they don't think twice about it. And really our goal is to sort of be, below the radar. They're just expecting the service to happen magically. When they roll their can out in the morning for refuse, they come back at the end of the day, the can should be upright and empty. They shouldn't be thinking about anything else because it really should be seamless and almost a second thought for the resident.
Yeah, everything that you do really boils down to the reason that people live in cities. I mean, you can always move away from, say, the urban areas to any place that you want, someplace far, far away. But people live in cities because they want the services that you deliver. And I really appreciate that you say that it's sort of city within a city, because I don't want to have to know how the water comes out of the tap.
Right.
And I certainly don't have any idea how all of the trash trucks work and how recycling works. I don't have any idea how any of that happens. And I'm very pleased about not having to know that. I'm really glad you know about it.
Well, I appreciate it. And again, I think it's one of those things, again, citizens sort of expect the service. They want it to be a high quality service. And they want to make sure that they're getting value for their money. So whether it's for services like the enterprise funds or other services that we provide, like building maintenance and custodial service, they want to make sure that when they walk into a building, it's clean. The restrooms are clean, the common areas are clean. When they sit down, the chairs are clean. They want to make sure all those things happen. And we make sure that happens essentially without them having to give a second thought to it.
Yeah. So one of the things that people talk to me a lot about is the maintenance of their streets. Do you have a systematic approach to maintaining the streets?
We do, absolutely. And the reality is asphalt will age, obviously, and it will crack naturally. So we have a process where we use the lowest cost option that makes the most sense for the street. So not always is the case that the worst street is always the first street to be maintained. Sometimes you're trying to protect those streets that are before they're getting bad, doing a treatment, which could be a slurry seal or a crack fill. You may either get something more substantial like an overlay, where we take the top 1.5 inches or 2 inches off the asphalt, put in new asphalt. That's what most residents think is, I want my street redone. That's what they want.
Overlay.
But a lot of times the overlay cost is 10 or more times the cost of a slurry seal. So when you talk about 630 miles and probably several $1 billion in investment, having money every year to redo every street when every time the first crack appears isn't practical. So we actually do have a system where we go out and measure the condition of the streets. And we provide an evaluation that helps us look at which streets need to be treated now, how much money do we have, and what is the right treatment for the right street at the right time.
Wow. There's a whole lot more involved in that than just saying I've got a crack in my street and I want the whole street fixed, right?
Right. Well, by the same token, if there's just a pothole and we can go in and repair that, or there's a curb line crack or something, we'll certainly do those kinds of smaller repairs as we certainly can and relative to the issue. But if there's a pothole but the street's in far worse shape, we can fix the pothole. But really the bigger issue is getting the money together to do the larger improvement that has to happen later.
Right, right. So it sounds like that you are really efficient with taxpayer dollars to make sure that we're using our money in the best possible way for those streets.
We really do, because you could put the wrong treatment on the street or make every street look new and pretty, but you're only going to then treat a tenth of the streets you should be treating in a given year. So we're probably touching anywhere from 60 to maybe 75 miles of streets a year, so 10% of the network. And while that doesn't sound like a lot, a street should last 40 or 50 years. with proper maintenance. So, we're trying to treat the streets we need to with the right approach at the right time.
Well, and I know that this year during budget time, we talked about putting a little bit more funds into street maintenance, and we did so. But as the city grows, we're going to have to continue to put more and more money into that budget.
It will be very much an issue of, as the city matures, the infrastructure and the reinvestment in infrastructure, whether it's reinvestment in park grounds equipment, street maintenance, street lights, those things eventually have a life, and eventually a street light pole has to be replaced, or the lighting fixture replaced. So you become a community that goes from heavy growth to more focused on reinvesting in the infrastructure. And I think Peoria has done a very good job of seeing that, and very early on starting to do more reinvestment in street maintenance.
Well, so before we leave, I just have to go back to a subject that is near and dear to my heart, and that is recycling. So tell me how our recycling system works and how that works also in the enterprise fund system.
Absolutely. So the recycling system is part of our solid waste collection system. So the rate that residents pay for recycling and solid waste is all part of the enterprise fund. We take the recyclables that are collected from people's homes to 2 different recycling facilities, what's called a MRF, a material recovery facility. There's one in Phoenix and there's one in Glendale. And we take the material, depending on what part of the city we're in, to those sites. So if we're way up north, say in Vistancia, we don't drive down to the Glendale landfill to take the recyclables to their MRF. We take them up to the City of Phoenix facility. Conversely, if we're down by Olive Avenue or Northern, we're taking those materials to Glendale and not the other way. But those materials have a value. Aluminum, newspaper, glass, metal, plastics all have a market value. And so we are paid by the City of Glendale for the value of our material, ultimately depending on what they get for the value material when they're selling it to end users. So it's a dynamic process. It's gone as high as maybe probably $30 or $40 a ton, maybe as low as $10 a ton of what we get. But it's money we're not paying out to bury it in the landfill.
So not only are we receiving income from it, we are not having to pay for landfill costs.
Exactly. And then doing, I think, certainly a more environmentally responsible thing by going ahead and taking the opportunity to recycle those materials that we can. And we look at, as all the communities do, we look at what materials can be recycled and what has a value. People sometimes ask about styrofoam peanuts or other things like that. The market for those things just isn't there. So we'd ask, throw those away, because putting them in the recycle bin means we've got to pull them out. Phoenix or Glendale, has to then pull them out so when they can sell the rest of the materials there, they're clean product.
And for clean product, we get more money.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
So the funds that we receive from recycling goes against, because of the enterprise funds, goes against the cost of the trash.
Exactly. It's a revenue.
Yeah, it's
so
a revenue.
So that revenue helps offset the cost of everything else we provide from a solid waste service standpoint.
Keeping prices down for
Absolutely.
our citizens.
Yeah, and more importantly, we even dissect that further between the residential service that we provide and commercial service. So commercial services have their own separate set of rates that have to support those operations. So businesses aren't supporting residential work on the solid waste side, and similarly residential solid waste isn't supporting commercial enterprises. They all operate independently within those enterprise funds.
Wow, that gets a little complicated, doesn't it?
Sometimes.
but well worth it for our citizens in the end.
Absolutely.
Well, thanks so much for being here with me today, for showing me this control center and telling us a little bit about Public Works.
Thank you very much for having me.
Appreciate it so much. Whether it is the quality of our drinking water, the condition of our streets, or the long-term maintenance of our community, I believe residents should be able to rely on their local government to provide the core services that most affect their day-to-day lives in a reliable, cost-effective manner. Your Public Works Utilities Department will continue to deliver quality services by using the latest technology, and by anticipating the needs of the future, this will assure that the people of Peoria receive superior services at a great value. To learn more about the services and programs available within Peoria's Public Works Utilities Department, be sure to visit their website. Thank you for joining me for another edition of Peoria Pulse.